Calling all Lasso and leadership fans, join us on this journey to a better, kinder, and more compelling way to lead. We're going to take you on a journey through the hit series Ted Lasso and explore what leadership lessons exist. And believe me, there are tons. Now, spoiler alert, we are assuming that you've seen each episode that we tackle, and we're aiming for about 15-minute podcast each time.
So thanks for joining. I'm Garth Nichols. I'm an educational leader. I sit the senior leadership team of my school, which is called Havergal College, but I still teach. And of course, I still coach.
Right on. And I'm Jason Rogers. I'm head of school at Arundel, and I'm simply a Ted Lasso enthusiast. And I'm from Calgary, but today I'm in Toronto with Garth. I'm thrilled to be
still
here.
In Toronto.
I'm coming home soon. but I'm here still. And we're doing another episode live, which we're super excited about. So we put this podcast together to really just nerd out and connect on the series of Ted Lasso and leadership. And we're going to have some fun pulling out some leadership lessons that may have been, unnoticed, certainly underappreciated, and ones, that are just simply a lot of fun and something to reflect upon. So we've created a public Ted Lasso fan club, book club, and global conversation. So with each podcast, if you've been along the ride, we all know that, Ted is one of the main characters. And I'm wondering, at what point, Garth, are you going to say that Ted is your favorite character?
It's actually,
you're
It's
a little
episode.
bit flip is all I can say. Yeah.
Last episode was Keely with her radical candor. But this time it's Ted because of his radical move that he makes.
Yeah.
He makes his first public cultural move in front of the fans, in front of everybody. And it was a super brave choice. And I love the way that he did it and responded to it.
Yeah. And I'm, of course, still
with Roy Kent.
Still Roy Kent. And there's moments in this one that I just love where Sam goes down and he seems to be hurt.
Yeah.
But you never know with soccer players. So he's down on the ground rolling about. And, Jamie steps over Sam.
Yes.
Super disrespectful. Doesn't even stop. And Roy changes his view just a little bit. One, he goes over and tells Jamie to help out. Jamie kind of helps out. But then he goes over and chats with Sam. He offers some guidance. He connects. And so we see Roy starting to think about leadership more than just hating Jamie.
Mm-hmm.
He starts to see it as how do I entrust and build other people up?
Yeah.
And there he goes over to Sam. They have a quiet conversation. He gives a little bit of advice, and they carry on. And so I just see Roy continuing to develop in this leadership, and we'll see where it takes him throughout the episodes.
That piece of advice is amazing. He's like, just limp a little bit.
Yeah.
Then give the fans a thumbs up. They'll love it. And so he's actually building on his experience, passing that along in order to lift up Sam and his future career in front of the fans, which I think is great. Yeah. So do we have any listener feedback?
From my side, we have a little bit more listener feedback I'm happy to talk about. I had an entire school reach out to me this time. And they said, a couple of our teachers picked up on the podcast and we want to hear more. How do you think we can use it as a school? And I think that's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah.
It's kind of a fun way to do professional development. Sit back and I would just take your leadership challenges at the end, put them on an agenda, and talk about as a group, how do these things manifest in our environment? By the time we're done this, you're going to have 34 of those, which will be plenty enough, professional development for any leadership team. By the time you get to the end, you'll have to start back over. This thing will regenerate infinitely. So that was pretty cool, actually. I'm glad that schools are picking up. What about you, Garth? Have you heard from anybody?
Yes, one of my very close colleagues, Celeste Kirsch, she's been listening. She is an incredible podcaster in her own right. So she loves that the length.
Mm-hmm.
She also thinks we've got a great project on our hands that will have a lot of fun. And this is
this is it.
Super fun for us.
Yeah.
Quick plug for Celeste. So she has a podcast. I think she's in her 4th year. And if you're an educator out there, it's called Teaching Tomorrow, available wherever you can get your podcasts. And these are incredibly important guests, lessons, understandings, pushing our feelings, pushing our thoughts on what education is and what it can be. And she's brilliant.
Cool. I wonder if she's going to join us on this podcast. It'd be pretty cool.
Hey-o.
There we go. Okay. So let's get right into episode 5, Tan Lines. Garth, tell us what you saw.
Well, as I sort of alluded to at the very front, this is when Ted makes his first sort of public display of the culture that he wants to build. And there's a whole bunch of things happening in the game where he is coaching. They are down, and Jamie Tart comes back, has 2 goals, and he's every time he celebrates a goal, he's chanting, he's pointing at this, he's saying me. And there's something that doesn't sit right with him. And so at halftime, they call everybody in. And that's when Ted actually begins to really build the culture of the team.
Yeah.
So he has a speech, and Roy Kent gets everyone's attention, says, hey, sit down and listen. And And Ted's speech is priceless. And he starts by identifying, we are broken. And that's that radical candor, which I loved in Keeley last time. Here it is again. And he says, we need to embrace change. And that takes bravery. The speech is disarming in Ted's way, right? Very disarming. And it's also charming, right? Because he uses himself and examples from his own life. And then there's a point where it's alarming because he bangs the sign "Believe."
Yes,
right, and he hits it. And that's a cultural moment.
It's a call to action.
It's a call to action, and it's a visceral call to action too. So he removes the star who scored 2 goals, Jamie Tart. The fans hate him for it. They're shouting at him and yelling at him, but it works. And for the first time ever, the team plays well. They come back and they win the game. And it's Trent Krim at the end of the game who comes up to Ted and says, that took balls.
Yeah.
And Ted said, sometimes it's all we got. We're speaking metaphorically here, but sometimes you got to make those brave moves, and it might blow up in your face.
Yeah.
And so then the camera pans to Rebecca, and you see Rebecca utter a swear word. She goes, "Oh shit."
Yeah.
And that's her moment. The penny drops. She says, "This guy is going to turn this team around."
Yeah.
And so that moment for me is just infused with a lot of cultural power.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, for me, in that moment, Ted is telling the truth to his team. He's being authentic. And I think, Ted's strength is authenticity. But often it's guys, this is a happy-go-lucky Southern United States guy.
Yeah.
But we see as this series continues that there's a lot of authenticity there. And one of the moments that sticks out for me, Garth, is it's simple. And it's at the beginning. And his son and his wife show up at the game. And Ted says, practice is over.
Yeah.
And runs towards his boy and takes off. And for me, it's just like this authenticity in Ted is truly embodied there because he's signaling his core principle is family comes first, right? And he's giving permission to other people to recognize that for them, family can come first too. Or what is your core principle and live by it? And it's a magical moment that's really light but important. And we see how that comes to play later in the series. In fact, it actually drives the finale. Yeah, that moment drives the finale. So pretty cool. Was there anything else that?
Well, I'd also say this is the episode where we really get into his marital piece. Yeah. And in our last episode, we talked about kids. Talked about how sometimes we have struggle with our own kids, and that we are different people. Can be and probably should be different people when we are at home versus when we're at work. And so Ted starts to open up about that he's in therapy, and that his therapist has said, or his wife has said, your optimism is too much. I can't live with your optimism. Yeah. And so that's something that Ted is wrestling with because he just tends to just be the optimist that everything can work out, and that really backfires for him. And so I think that's a significant moment when we start learning about these pieces. And then the advice of the therapist is to give her some space, and he does, and it kills him. Right? It's just so hard for him to do that, but he recognizes for her to grow. Give her some space. And so we're wrestling with a whole bunch of issues here, relational, personal, emotional, like all of these things start to come together. There's no answer. It's not neatly tidied up either at the end of the episode, nor at the end of the season. It doesn't get neatly tied up. And so for me, this is the beginning of this thread of how the personal side informs. When he says we are broken, he is talking on a number of different levels in his speech. So how the personal side informs who you are and how you show up with other people.
Yeah. Oh man, that's
powerful.
Good stuff, Garth. I mean, all of that personal is nicely balanced with like management, honestly. So I hate to pull us out of the personal and put us into management, but Ted demonstrates something else that I think is extraordinarily important in our leadership management, no matter who we are, whether we're head of school or deputy head, or we all have bosses. Yeah. Right. I think that's the bottom line. And we have to understand, how do we work with our bosses? That's how it works. And there's a moment, again, back to when Jamie's all about himself, and Ted realizes that his toxicity needs to be removed. Yeah. And he thinks to himself, I'm going to bench Jamie, but everybody's going to go ballistic. And they do, because he's the star. He already scored the goal in the game. But what does he do? You might remember Ted decides to leave the sideline, and he runs up to the owner's box. He says, the owner, Becca, I'm going to bench Jamie.
Are you okay with that?
Are you okay with that? And I mean, in that moment, I guess she could say no, and it'd be good feedback. But, she basically says, go ahead, Ted, thinking, you're going to screw the whole thing up. You might as well. Perfect. So Ted runs back down, and he does what he said he was going to do. He benches Jamie. And I think in this moment, for me, it comes back to some advice I was given when I was early in my leadership, was from my boss at the time. He said, listen, Jason, we are going to be just fine as long as you don't surprise or embarrass me.
Yeah.
Right. And I think about that all the time. Are my actions, what I'm about to do, going to surprise or embarrass anybody? If they are, then I need to communicate more.
Yeah.
I need to open that conversation. I have to have dialogue. And that goes for like people who are my bosses and also people who I work alongside. And am I going to surprise and embarrass them? And I think that's really important principle to lead forward. I think Ted does that absolutely magically here.
Yeah, and that's a great, it's a beautiful point, Jason. And the reason he benches Jamie Tart is because they've been practicing Nate's play.
Yeah.
Right. Which is one more pass, just one more pass.
Yeah.
And Jamie Tart refuses to do that.
Yeah.
And so to your point, when you recognize something that is blocking the organization's success, even though it might bring short-term success, and we know Ted is playing chess and everyone else is playing checkers, but Ted is playing the long game, but he recognizes it almost immediately that we need to sideline this, move him. We don't need to eliminate him from the organization. That is not Ted's intent. But we need to sideline this so that he can see how he is holding up the team.
Yeah.
And that's why I love this idea of like one more pass.
Yeah.
One more pass to Sam.
Yeah. I love it too. And I think, just bringing this back, I guess, away from management back to the personal for a moment, there is just a magical moment in this episode. It's in the last couple of minutes where Beard and Ted are sitting beside each other on a bench. Ted is effectively separated from his wife in this moment. And they simply sit there and they're both holding a pint of beer.
Yeah.
They just have to have a knowing glance. They tap their glasses and have a drink. And you know that they're there together. Yeah. And I think in leadership, just like in podcasting, you've got to have somebody who you partner with, who you implicitly trust, who gets you without even saying the words that you're saying. And I think building that long-time relationship like Ted and Beard have transcends, relationship, transcends management, transcends leadership. And I think that's really what sustains them through all the tough times. And it's a beautiful, beautiful moment.
Yeah. I was thinking about this because I coached our senior basketball team, and we had an exhibition game against a local school, and there's a couple of plays, and we ran the play.
Yep.
Right. And it opened up a beautiful shot.
Yep.
And Mina missed the shot. But and I was like, Mina, that's a point in my books.
Yep.
Right. Because actually we don't care about this exhibition game. We don't care about winning this game. We care about actually winning the season.
100%.
And it came about because there's a knowing look from one of our players that made this beautiful creative move.
Yeah. And
I we have to keep doing that because that is the magic that's going to build on this creative offense that we have.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful moment.
Yeah. That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up this episode, I think we can take a few things from it. And this is a powerful, powerful episode in leadership lessons again. So first, live your principles. Just like when we see Ted run to his boy in call of practice, family comes first for Ted. You can see that. Organizational toxicity can hold up an entire organization. Yeah. As a leader, you've got to find a way to manage that and handle it.
As a leader, you have to notice it.
Yes.
Right? You have to be aware of it. So again, going back to this idea of you're always listening right, in your organization. Yeah.
And when communicating, being open, honest, and forthright is absolutely essential. And finally, as always, we try to retitle these episodes. It's a little bit of a tit for tat challenge. See who's going to have the Spotify, who's going to have the podcast title. And here's mine, Garth. I say, heads up, here comes a truth bomb. Nice. That's one of my favorite quotes from that episode. What do you think? Because
one of the goals is scored off a header, right?
Yeah.
I think. Yeah. That's nice.
Clever, right?
Ooh, nuanced. I like that. Mine's not so. I don't think mine's too clever. I was just going to call this episode One More Pass.
Yeah.
Right?
Classic.
And then, we also leave with a leadership challenge. Right?
Yeah.
How can you open up one more pass in your organization? So how can you involve someone else, pull someone else into your work, someone else new into your work? Or recognize, do you have assets or even human potential that you might want to activate differently or in a new way? Or even better, how can you elevate the work of somebody else?
Yes.
How can you turn the spotlight to the work that someone else is doing in your organization and do that publicly like Ted does?
Cool. Well, as always, we'd like to hear from you.
Yeah.
Right? Rate the podcast if you like it. We're still ahead of Malcolm Gladwell.
Nice.
Yeah, we got a 5-point rating here.
Amazing.
Follow us on TikTok or Instagram, or just simply follow this podcast and provide us a little bit of feedback.
Yeah. So until next time, keep leading the lasso way, which we are finding out more and more what that means. So keep listening the lasso way, keep leading the lasso way, keep listening, and support us.
Thanks for joining us. Bye for now.